been gut-wrenching for me to try and get through anything without breaking down in tears. And today was probably the worst because this was Alison's home, her home station, and I, met the people that she worked with and the people that really loved her, and it was profoundly difficult for me. But I think that the outpouring of sympathy has just been, not only here but around the world, has been incredible. I mean, incredible. For Alison and for Adam. Alison was a force of nature. She was an absolute force of nature, and I think that her life is going to have meaning not just as a journalist, but if we can affect meaningful changes in our gun laws here, this senseless act, this senseless murder will not go in vain. And as I think you all know, this has been my mission, and I'm taking it up. And I was pleased that the governor of Virginia has stepped up and is right there with me. And I would encourage other politicians to be as courageous as he. And so that's the plan. I'm not going to let this drop. And as I've told many of you around the country and around the world, the people that I've spoken with, each time you think there's a tipping point with Sandy Hook or Aurora, and then nothing gets done. And I know you guys have to do your jobs. I mean, look, my daughter was a journalist, and she would want me here telling the story. I'm doing this for her. But as a journalist, I saw a piece that Dan Rather wrote, actually the day of the murder, and he said, our profession, meaning journalism, we're not doing our jobs staying on point with this and keeping this on the front burner, not the back burner. This stuff can't go away. You cannot let this die. And I know you've got other news to report on, but this can't be the story for 3 days and then, oh gee, well, let's see what Donald Trump has to say next week, or what's Donald Trump doing. This has got, you guys, she was one of you. She was one of you. She was in the fraternity. She was a journalist. And frankly, you guys should be concerned, because now when we're out here like this, I mean, everybody's a target. Everybody's a target. So you got to be with me on this. And we've got to do whatever we can to hold these people's feet to the fire and not be afraid of the NRA fighting any kind of reasonable legislation tooth and nail. We're not trying to take people's guns away. All we want to do is keep crazy people from getting guns. And there's got to be a way to do it. And I'm going to dig down in the weeds and start to learn the process. It's too raw for me yet, but I guarantee you somebody's got the answer for this, and somebody's got a reasonable answer for this, and I'm going to find it, and I'm going to make it happen.
Andy, the point's been made that your daughter's killer passed a criminal background check and was able to legally buy his weapons. Maybe this is a deeper, more layered issue.
I think it is.
How do you know if someone is mentally unstable?
Well, that's what we've got to find out. We've got to do. If there are warning signs, there's got to be a way. But we can solve that problem. But we need to at least start by having background checks. Let's take the small steps first, and let's close the loopholes on people being able to get guns at these gun shows. I mean, there are reasonable initiatives out there and reasonable proposals that have been made. Who needs the legislature in Virginia passed a law that you could buy a machine gun. I mean, who the hell needs a machine gun to go hunt? Or I don't get it.
You talk about a tipping point. What makes you think, or how do you think you can make this the tipping point that will change things after all those other massacres and shootings?
Well, I'm hoping that this time is different, because she's, as I mentioned, she's one of you guys. She's not that makes you special, but, you know, you have a voice, and you need to use that voice, and we need to keep the pressure on the politicians to not be afraid of the NRA. I mean, listen, the best thing that the NRA could do right now, most of their members support reasonable gun control. The membership does, but the politicians that get money from the NRA, they don't do anything. And it's time that we hold these people's feet to the fire and shame them wherever we can. And I want to go to the Virginia legislature, and I want them to look me in the eye and tell me, why can't we have a reasonable proposal, any reasonable background check, you know, the things that common sense dictates. I want them to look me in the eye and tell me why they don't want to support that.
Have you reached out to the NRA?
I have not, but I plan to.
What would they have seen in his background that would have caused him to not have a gun? He never was charged with anything. He never was committed.
You know, I don't know the answer to that question other than he had a history of. He was disturbed. You know, he had to be escorted out of this building when he was when he was let go. So, you know, there are warning signs out there that reasonable people can take a look at and go, wait a minute, you know, there's a problem here with these other shootings, with Sandy Hook. You know, there are problems that you can look at, and there's no guarantee. Look, it's wearing a seatbelt. You know, you drive around in a car, and we all need to be wearing seatbelts, but that's no guarantee that it's going to save us from an accident and getting killed. I mean, you know, but we got to do something. It's a step, and that's really right now. That's all I'm advocating. Let's enact reasonable gun control measures, and do something reasonable. And then, you know, we can tackle the mental health. I mean, and part of that is the mental health issue. We have to be able to, you know, when there are warning signs, and again, I'm no expert. There are smarter people that can figure this out, but there's got to be a reasonable way for us to do this.
Parker, did your daughter ever express any concern over the current state of gun laws? Not the reporter, but your daughter, right?
She, you know, listen, I don't own a gun. We don't have a gun in our family. I'm probably going to have to get one. I mean, sad to say, but, you know, unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. Pardon me?
Why do you say you need to get a gun?
When you're in the media, and when you're, you know, taking on an issue like this, there are a lot of people that take exception to what you're saying. So I will probably have to do that.
Have you already received threats, too?
I have not, but I don't want to take any chances.
Did she share this passion, though, with you?
She was always concerned, only because, you know, she knew, like all of you know, you're visible and you're in the public eye. You could conceivably be a target. But, you know, did she consciously dwell on that, or was she always saying, gee, I think that, you know, my life is in danger? No, she didn't live like that. She lived with, you know, her life was full of joy, and she always saw the best in people, and she touched so many people, and that's why they loved her. And something like this would never occur to her. You know, it's different than you know, suggesting, okay, Dad, I want to go to Iraq to cover, you know, the war on terror and to cover ISIL. That's not something she wanted to do. She was good at hard news at her prior station, and, you know, you can ask the news director down there. I mean, that's what she enjoyed that. But she also loved what she was doing here. It was it was totally different, but something that she enjoyed doing, and she never would have anticipated anything like this. No, I mean, that was never in the back of her mind.
Can you tell us about your visit to the station today? How it went, who you spoke with, how difficult this was?
I spoke with the governor and his wife. They were gracious enough to come here, and again, I think he's done a great job as governor, and I even have a more newfound, profound respect for him. He is he's a guy that is going to, he means what he says. He's not afraid to stand up, and he's grown a pair. Actually, he already had a pair, and I wish other politicians would do the same thing. I've not heard a word from, the first official to call me was Terry McAuliffe. I've not heard a word from Senator Kaine. I've not heard a word from Senator Warner. I see the tweets and, all of that stuff that says, oh, gee, we're so sorry for the family. And I understand that, and I appreciate that. But I knew those two guys. They campaigned with me when I ran for the House of Delegates. And it's very disappointing that Senator Kaine and Senator Warner haven't at least, given me a call, and number one, and come out against this. And I think it's part of it is that they're as politicians, we live in a very conservative state. But again, it's time to do something. It's time to do something, folks. Stand up, take a stand, and do something.
Would you have advocated for your daughter to have a firearm before this even happened?
No, not really, because as I say, if she were, all right, and I'm going to use you guys as an example right here. If you had an AK-47 strapped to your waist right now, do you think you'd see somebody coming behind you to attack you? No, you wouldn't. There's no way you do it, because you know why? Because you're focused on me. You're focused on your job. Your photographers are focused on their job. They wouldn't see it coming. It wouldn't have made any difference.
And the station has suspended live shots for orders of photographers here outside the building indefinitely.
Right, exactly. Because you know why? Because there's going to be some crazy that's going to say, wow, I could do that. I could be on national television. This would be really cool. I'm going to do that. It's the copycat. And it's a copycat. And that's what I say. You guys need to worry about that stuff. And that's why you guys need to be with me. And I challenged the president yesterday. I was interviewed by the BBC America, and the journalist asked me what, the biggest concern that President Obama had, and he thought his biggest failure was the fact that he was not able to enact gun laws. And the question was, well, do you think any president can do it? And I said, absolutely, because nobody thought he would pass health care reform. Nobody thought he could get a deal done with Iran. Nobody thought he'd open up the doors of Cuba. And I said, of course he can. He's not up for re-election. And I looked in the camera and I said, Mr. President, it's time for you to take a stand and do this. Help me. I will help you do this.
Sir, this isn't a delicate question, but could you say anything about Alison's arrangements at this point? About the arrangements to the funeral?
Well, I appreciate your delicate. We're having it's a celebration of life on Monday with family and friends, and for obvious reasons, we can't really disclose where this is going to be because, unless it's part of the news organizations, we'd be glad to share that with you as long as you kept it private. But we would have all kinds of well-wishers, I'm sure, and then we would also have people that probably would not need to be there. But then Alison was always, she loved the river, and she was a great athlete. And as you all know, anything she touched, she did it well. And anything she took, and she was a great paddler. And we just got back from a weekend down at Nantahala Falls, or Nantahala, down near Bryson City, and she loved it down there. And it was one of the places that she thought that she and Chris were going to get married. So at some point, we're going to go down there with her ashes, and that's where she'd want to be, in the river. Sorry. You all have any other questions?
Parker, there are strangers that have been coming all day, leaving signs of support for your daughter, and
I would express my appreciation. You know, as you can imagine, I've not turned the television on or my laptop. You know, my phone is exploding with messages, and you know, I'm trying to get around to reaching everyone and old friends. But from what I've heard, just like you said, the outpouring of affection is not just here. I'm getting messages worldwide. I mean, nationwide, worldwide. This has struck such an emotional chord, and that's why I think, you know, it's different this time, folks. It's different this time, and you guys have got to help me make a difference. And I think it's, you know, I think people, I would hope that people are not going to just say, gosh, this is the, you know, become immune to it and say, oh gosh, you know, this is another tragedy, next level. You know, what are we going to have for dinner tonight, honey? We can't let that happen. And I think that's why you're seeing the outpouring of affection for her here and across the world. I mean, I've heard about friends of mine out in California that they're holding a candlelight vigil for her in Los Angeles. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's just, it's remarkable. But like I said, she was a force of nature, and and her soul's always going to be right here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.